Welcome to Unraveling Midlife. I'm your host, Sarah Spence. Thanks for joining me as I explore my own midlife by speaking with inspiring people about theirs. The definition of midlife I'm using relates to Western astrology transits that run from the mid-30s to the mid-40s for everyone. Each of these transits has an overall theme, though the details do vary by generation and by person. Our last episode explored these deeply, and in the show today we dive into another topic dear to my heart, kirtan. That's generally spelt Kirtan, but more specifically reflecting its Sanskrit origin, Kiirtan. Sometimes translated as joyful chanting, kirtan is the music aspect of yoga and has become more and more popular in the West in recent years. It is group singing that's a form of spiritual practice, melodic chanting of mantra in Sanskrit or other Indian languages. In kirtan, there is often a leader who does the call, and the group responds. Today's guest is ethnomusicologist Jyoshna LaTrobe. She has studied the origins of kirtan, holding both a master's and a doctorate in the study of Rarh music. An accomplished musician and kirtaniya, as kirtan leaders are sometimes called, Jyoshna has an astounding number of albums to her repertoire, and not only in kirtan. She is the founder of the Kirtan Academy, including online open mic nights for all you budding kirtanists out there. Jyoshna has been leading kirtan for years worldwide. Here in little old New Zealand, she united many different traditions of kirtan by coordinating a kirtan stage for a number of years at a festival, which is how we met. And I feel it noteworthy for anyone who has sung kirtan at any of the larger conscious festivals in the last few years in New Zealand that we have Jyoshna to thank for helping to grow kirtan to what it has become today. I'm honoured to be able to talk to Jyoshna on Unraveling Midlife, and equally as honoured that I got to talk on her podcast as well, and I'll make sure that there are links in the notes. Well, welcome, Jyoshna. It's so great to have you here on Unraveling Midlife. I know that we have crossed paths quite a bit with kirtan in the past, but you have a really broad range of, I'm sure I'm going to find out new stuff, but I know that you've got ethnomusicology and deep research into this style of music. But first of all, can you give us the definition so those that have never heard the word kirtan know what it is?
Sure, and thank you so much for inviting me. I really appreciate it. Kirtan, very simply put, is from the Sanskrit word kirt, which means loud. So it's actually praise singing sung loud, praise music sung loud. So kirtan is not just, actually it's not just singing, it's comes within the purview of samgita, which means dance, instrumental music and singing. So it's praise music performed loud. That's a very simple definition of kirt, because kirt means loud in Sanskrit.
Wow. What drew you into kirtan, which is such a big part of your life, and then later we'll go, what else do you do? Is kirtan everything?
Yeah, no, kirtan came to me when I was about 18, but before that, I'd been making music from a very early age, so it came to me as something very special when I sort of embarked on the path of meditation and yoga. I didn't know anything about it beforehand, nothing at all. And in fact, my first experience of kirtan was like, oh my God, what's this? It was a whole group of people in a room singing and dancing and playing instruments, and a lot of it was out of tune, and it was, wow. On the one hand, it was like, a bit overwhelming, but on the other hand, I felt it in my soul, I felt it internally, and so I was able to just forget all of those musical things and just jump into it. But it's become a very important part of my life, as from about that age when I sort of started to do meditation and yoga, because it is part of the yogic path.
It is, and it's just occurred to me that where I was introduced to singing Sanskrit, we didn't call it kirtan, and that was probably very apt because the temple at the ashram I lived at had the kind of acoustics that if you did anything really loud, it was too much. So,
Yeah,
so we called them bhajans.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Oh, that's great.
And so you've studied kirtan like at an academic level as well, haven't you?
Yes, because I was led to it because my master's was on the music culture of Rarh in India, and that area is like a gold mine of music and indigenous music. And so I did like a purview of all the genres in that region. And one of those genres, one of the five main genres, was kirtan. So that was the last one I studied. And the very last experience I had was of a Rarhi kirtan group doing kirtan, and I had what you might call a really transformational experience just listening to it, and I had no expectations at all. I had no experience of what it was going to be like, but it was so ecstatic. It's so powerful. It was like all the hair in my body stood on end, and I was crying, and I didn't understand what was going on for me. But that was my really first experience of what they call the supra-ascetic science of kirtan, and I understood that they had it, and so that was at the end of my master's, and I just knew I had to go deeper into it, and so I went and did a PhD on the kirtan of Rarh, just on that particular genre.
Can you say more about the supra?
Ascetic science.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a definition given by my guru, Sri Sri Anandamurti, but it wasn't something that I understood at all until after that experience. And even after that experience, I still couldn't have explained it to you. So you could say it's taken me the last 20 years to really get to grips with that definition, what that actually really means. And it'd be very hard to put it into words. But it's interesting that the part supra is in the beginning. Supra means transformational, transcendental, going beyond. And so this is a kirtan. This is a musical science, aesthetic science that takes you beyond what one would normally experience, even with aesthetic experiences. So it's transformational, it's transcendental, it's ecstatic, it's all of those things. But there's a reason why it is like that. There is a science behind it that can take you to that place. It's not only spontaneous, there's a lot behind it. And that's what I was studying. How do they actually make that? How do they create that experience in somebody who has no experience in kirtan, or very little? That was my research.
Wow. Did you meet anyone who'd had that experience with kirtan?
All of us. Basically everyone who came from the West who hadn't been to Rarh and came to listen to the music or whatever had that same experience because it works.
Specific to that region, or is it something that, I know it's kind of like I'm asking you to explain the unexplainable almost. Do other people, does that experience happen outside of the area where Rarh comes from as well?
That, I can only really speak about Rarh, although, I have had that, some kind of experience like that with other kinds of kirtan. But this particular region is known as the homeland of kirtan. It's the area where kirtan's been developed for a very long time, like the very first renowned kirtan poem called the Gita Govinda by Jayadev, he was in the region of Rarh. And even when Chaitanya Mahaprabhu came from his homeland to Puri, he travelled through Rarh, and he acknowledged that Rarh was a tradition that he just acknowledged it and he praised it. So it's been around for a very long time. And when I was there researching, I did go to other regions to see if those same kirtan rags, for example, were in the other areas. And no, they weren't. They're specific to that region. So, for example, in New Zealand we have Māori music. You won't find the same Māori music. You won't find that same effect of Māori music in other parts of the world. It's very specifically in Aotearoa, Same in Rarh. It's specifically to Rarh. It's connected to Rarh.
And that's a small region, roughly like southwest of Calcutta. Is that right?
It's kind of, yes, it's about 5 hours from Calcutta, inland.
In a small geographical area?
It's mostly like West Bengal and the borderlands of the other regions.
Ah, okay.
It's mostly West Bengal area.
Okay, so any travellers who like maps, they can look up the region. Right.
It's Purulia district is the heartland of the Rarh music culture.
And you said it's been there for a very long time. Like, how many centuries are we talking?
Well, the Gita Govinda was written around the 11th century.
Ah, okay.
And before that, we have the Baal music of the mystic Baals, which has been there, God knows how long, more than 1,000 years more. And then you've also got the Charyapadas, which is the ancient songs from the Buddhist practitioners. So it goes back a very long way. I wouldn't know exactly how many thousands of years it goes back.
So what kind of instruments? I know that if someone's listening and they've done some kirtan or heard of it, these days in the West, a lot of people getting together to play kirtan might be playing guitar or might be playing the harmonium, and there might be an Indian drum or some percussion. What was the traditional way of singing, chanting, practicing kirtan?
I think, in the days of Jayadeva, for example, in my research I came across different recordings or different reports saying that he would sing and probably play an instrument, though it's not recorded, and his partner would dance. So even in those days, kirtan was a combination of dance, instrumental music, and singing. And then during Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's days, it was in the Charitamrita, written by Krishnadas, which is the biography of Chaitanya. He talks about the group composed of coal drum players, like the mridangam, but in that part of the world, northeast India, it's called the coal drum. So there's the coal drum, there's the cymbals and dancers. So those two main instruments are the coal drum and the cymbals. And of course later on in Rarh they've adopted the harmonium and lots of other percussion instruments as well. But the harmonium's role is to support the singer. Just like when I'm there and I play with my kirtan teacher, I play guitar, and he likes that, like that the role of that instrument is to support the melodic line.
I find that when I lead, it really helps keep people in tune. Yeah, because the guitar's a little not as loud. And of course the harmonium came to India. It was an adjustment of the English sitting down pedalled harmonium that the British brought over, and they made into a box where they sit, because we still get questions, still explain what a harmonium is quite often to people. It basically sounds like a piano accordion, but it looks like a box.
Yeah.
with a keyboard.
Yeah, it's a lovely instrument.
Yeah.
And in Rarh they carry it around because they're dancing when they're doing kirtan, so they carry it around. It's so heavy, but they carry it with them like for an hour and a half or so as they're dancing around in the temple. It's amazing how much strength they got, or how much energy you can get from doing kirtan to be able to carry it around for that long.
And you've been practicing kirtan for pretty much most of your life. So here on the show, we do kind of look at what happened in your midlife, because I always find that people had these pivotal kind of changes, maybe big, maybe small. And I wondered from what you said if your research and your practice of kirtan was a main feature of like your late 30s, early 40s, or what impact that had.
Yeah, that was a time when I was kind of questioning what am I going to do? What do I want to do with my life? I just got into a relationship, and it was a committed relationship, and I thought I need to start doing something very concrete in the world. And I was looking at what did I want my career to be like and be in. And that's when I embarked on my master's, And after 8 attempts to get my proposal accepted, I think the 8th one was accepted, and that was to go and do this, have a look at all the different genres in Rarh in India. So I started my musical exploration at that age, at that time.
Right.
Yeah, that's when I started it, I remember. And I think, that was a huge boost for me. It was a really a deep time of exploration and gratitude, just having the opportunity to do that kind of work, and finding immense satisfaction in doing it. Yeah, definitely that was it for me, embarking on my career and on my musical journey, exploration to that.
You've done a lot of travel. I know that you've got a number of albums, and some of them are recorded live in different countries. And so all that's happened since that time where you delved into it, or is that over a longer period? Tell us about your travels.
That first, when I went to do my master's research, in those days you were allowed absolute free reign, So I spent 8 months in India and doing that research. And one of the things I did as well was to compose kirtans when I was there. And those kirtans were all inspired by the places where I was visiting, such as Puri. I went to Puri when they had the festival, they call the Car Festival there. I went to that area, and I was deeply inspired by that. And
what was the festival?
It's called the Car Festival. So it's when they pull the cart through the streets of Puri, and they end up at the temple, the Jagannath temple. And so it's an area, it's a time of festivities and celebration, and kirtans basically going on throughout the festival. So at that time, it was so populated, it was so busy. I was actually standing on the roof of the hotel looking down, and I could see all these pockets of kirtanias performing kirtan amongst this huge crowd. It was amazing visually. And so, that area inspired kirtan in me. And also another area where I spent a lot of time was a place called Anandanagar, which is in Rarh. It's a word for the city of bliss. And there's a number of what they call spots in that area where people have sat and gained enlightenment. And so those particular rocks or little areas by the riverside are very powerful spiritually. So if you sit there and do meditation there, you immediately get some charge with some spiritual energy. And so sitting on one of these, they call tantra pits or seats of tantra, you get this huge rush of spiritual energy. And so that inspired me to write a kirtan as well. So these different places that I've been to have inspired different melodies, different kirtan melodies. So that was during my period when I was doing my research in Rarh. That album called Sounds of Silence was composed. It was a year long. That album took a year to make. For 8 months of that was in India. And then I came back and I recorded it with my friend Michael Lloyd, who's been my producer ever since that time, since 97.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow. So that 97, you were right in the midst of your Uranus opposition and coming to the end of your Neptune square. There's your midlife transits right there.
Wow.
Because I do recall you saying at one point as well that you were doing, I don't know if it was less ethnic and more kind of pop music, but I'm sure I heard you say that that you played at Sweetwater's. Was that the first time round or the second time round, or? Yeah,
I played at Sweetwater's the time when it went bust. I don't know, was that the second time?
That was in the late 90s. Yeah, one of the iconic New Zealand festivals. I know that I was, I think in high school or university at the time, going, oh yeah, I want to go to a music festival. That sounds cool. And then it was bust.
Yeah.
Oh, bugger.
Yeah. It was really a pity because it was a great festival. And, I put together a group with dancers, with visuals, with stage props and the whole works, and it was amazing. And it took many months to put that together, and it was a combination of kind of dancey, poppy dance, alternative dance music, and then deeply spiritual music. It was a combination of the two, because I find the two, they can merge together in some instances. So I was experimenting with that. I did an album in 2000, which was like an alternative dance album, and I got funding to make a video from New Zealand On Air to make a video for a track called Anything. So I was experimenting at that time with dance music, and Michael Lloyd and Chris Banks were producing that with me. So I've done quite a few genres of music. One of those is alternative dance. Because, life is although I was deeply into kirtan, I was also experimenting with other kinds of music as well.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah, I find that, there's different aspects, and the kirtan's amazing, and there's other things to go into too.
Yes, exactly. I found that my music for me has, since the very beginning when I embarked on the spiritual path, or even before that, music for me was already a passion, and so then when I did start to do yoga meditation, music for me became like a way to record my spiritual and emotional life. So it's come with me. It's been my outlet since that time, since 1975. It's been my main outlet. And so during the years, I've put together more than 30, 40 albums, and some of those are original songs, some of those are kirtans, some of those are music inspired by Rarh.
Did you say 30 to 40?
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, that's not many when you think about how old I am. So it's been the diary of my life. The music is recorded through my music, and that's what it's intended to be.
I kind of felt like that about my albums, but I've only done 2, and they were 7 years apart, and I'm due another one.
Yeah.
I'd need to speed up if I want to, but it's not a competition.
No, it's not. And, in there's so many different influences from Rarh and from the different countries that I've been when I've been performing, Brazil, Philippines, UK, US, all those places have inspired me deeply, and have also inspired me to collaborate with musicians in those parts. That's what makes it so interesting for me, is connecting with musicians in those different places that I go.
That's always felt really special to me, meeting you. You have always been the connector of many musicians in my experience, because that's how, I don't know if that was exactly how we met, but we worked together in terms of you coordinated the kirtan stage when it was very young at a specific festival that no longer goes on in Auckland, the Kawaipurapura festivals, and always just so inclusive. Please come, and it was just so welcoming to have that cohesiveness and generosity of spirit to bring everyone together. So that was pretty amazing. And in the end, there were like too many people to fit on the kirtan stage slots, because kirtan suddenly boomed and everyone was wanting to perform.
Well, everyone was performing already. They were already performing in their own ashrams, in their own jagradis, in their own temples. They were already doing it, and it's so beautiful to bring that out into the open.
Yes.
Everyone can partake of that, because it's just the best kind of music ever, because it's so inclusive and it connects with everybody on a soul level.
Yeah, I just realised we didn't say at the beginning that kirtan it's a everyone sings it together kind of thing, if you made it this far and hadn't looked it up.
Yeah.
And so you mentioned to me recently, because you've been living overseas for a little while, and now you're back here in Aotearoa, and you've set up a kirtan academy?
Yes, during lockdown in Ireland, I was there. I had gone through a really deep change and transformation in my life, and I had to get myself together, and I was inspired, I guess prompted to empower myself again. And I had been quite down the year before that, and still doing kirtan, but at a low edge in my life, low place. And so the idea had been around for some time, and then I felt, I have a daughter now. I have a daughter, and I thought, wow, I really need to do something that for her and for me. And so I started this idea, and it started with a bang. It was amazing. We started the Kirtan Academy on August 2nd, 2020, and we started with a course straight after. So we did an intensive 7-day course on kirtan, and it's been going strong ever since then. The latest thing we've been doing is the open mic kirtan night. So of course it's online because of COVID. And so we've got people, we had it just 2 nights ago. We had people from all around the globe coming and sharing their kirtans and sharing where they come from, the story behind them, and having the support of everybody there, just, giving them feedback, and just it's a very supportive environment for people to come and share their soul expression. Basically, that's their soul expression amongst others. Because so often we do kirtan and we don't get that feedback, and we don't get that support. It's a spiritual practice, but it's also a musical genre that needs that support and that encouragement. And so this open mic night, for example, brings together people to feel that satsang, to feel that company, and amongst other kirtanias from around the globe. So I will send you a link, and anyone who is listening to this is very welcome to come and share their kirtans.
Yeah, and being in a supportive place is so powerful, because I know that for me, over the years, even if it was, when I was a teenager or even earlier doing like musical theatre, and then moving in my 20s into the bhajan and then the kirtan when I returned to New Zealand, there's so much reflection with music. It is such a personal thing when it's a spiritual practice, but there's whole different levels of ego to transcend. Oh, what are people thinking of me? Are they going to say that it was good or not? Like, I'll come to the point where, my ego always likes that, I have to admit, but if my voice catches because I haven't supported my breath well enough, I actually just don't worry about it anymore. So there's something about getting older and just not really caring so much. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. That happens to all of us, and that's the beauty of kirtan, because mostly it's sung collectively. So when someone's voice breaks or they run out of air, or there's that support there. And even though online, of course, we're doing it individually mostly, not always, sometimes there's a group, still there's that understanding that this is mostly sung collectively, and if we were able to, we normally are singing anyway, muted, but we're singing along with the person when they're sharing their kirtan.
Oh, great. I was just thinking about kirtan being loud, and I know that my favourite types are still loud, but maybe not quite so percussive. Yeah, I guess with that, there's kind of different styles of kirtan. There's very Indian, really bassy drums. There's more like delicate tabla Indian drum style kirtan, and of course there's people that get together and just sing with a guitar. But I guess as long as it's all loud, it's all doing something in terms of spiritual practice.
Even if the person's not singing and just listening, it's still doing something spiritually for that person. It doesn't have to be loud. That's just the definition, that's just the core of the word kirt. But at the same time, there's so many, as you say, there's so many different expressions of kirtan. It can be the most divine, deep, sort of quietish sort of kirtan. or it can be loud and powerful kirtan. Of course, when it's loud, it's easier to get completely absorbed into it and lose oneself into it. But not always, depends. As you say, like if someone's playing the drum way too loud and you can't hear the mantra, for example, then that's not ideal. And so, when we look into the science of kirtan, we talk about all of that stuff, like what does it take to uplift a kirtan and have including instrumental music and dance? What does it take? What do we need to consider? There's so many aspects to it. That's something that I was, researching and got a lot of guidance from being in Rarh, because they're experts in instrumental music. Especially with the khol rhythms, for example. Like the khol drum is very special because it has that top end which is very high, has a high sound, and then the low end which is a very deep sound. And some, I've heard said to me before that the top end resonates with our Sahasrara chakra, whereas the deep sound resonates with our Anahat chakra and helps inspires us to dance. So even the drum itself in Rarh has this deep spiritual significance.
Oh, I love that. So it's connecting the crown to the heart.
Yeah, connecting the two and inspiring us to move as well as to go deep into our spiritual connection with the divine. So the khol drum is the science behind it, and when they play those rhythms, they're playing with that sound and with that. It is really a divine play, a leela, in terms of their, leela between the lover and the beloved, Krishna Radha. It's a leela, it's a divine play. And that's what they're radiating upon. That's what they're feeling and thinking about when they're playing the drum. They think of the khol drum as being lovers, like one side is Krishna, one side is Radha. And when they're playing it, they're experiencing that divine love play, you might say, between the two divine lovers. So they're right in that path. They're in that mood of divine love when they're playing the khol drum. And then the kartals or the cymbals are accentuating the rhythm so that the dancers can stay on track. The dancers can come in on the strong beat. So there's a whole science behind it, and that's what we explore in the Kirtan Academy.
Oh, I might have to come along, because I know that playing the kartals, the cymbals, that the way that I've learnt vaguely, not officially, but to play is the cymbal kind of crash, I guess. Well, it's not really crash, tinkle, the ding, comes on the opposite to our Western pop music. And I know if I grab a tambourine or something and I play my usual kirtan kind of rhythm, I get really awkward, painful looks from Western musicians if I'm playing along with them, and then I have to kind of reset and go, oh, I'm going to put them off, so I need to change the way I'm doing it to go on the off beat.
Yeah, there's different theories about that, but it's a beautiful exploration. It's just so much fun to explore that.
Yeah. Well, I know that kirtan is, even, or bhajan singing is so powerful. I mean, the yoga ashram that I've been involved with comes from the North India, Swami Shivananda, and he always said Sankirtan is the fastest way to enlightenment.
Yeah, that's what they believe in Rarh too. They believe that this is the way to God, and that's their only spiritual practice. And Chaitanya Mahaprabhu believed the same. Personally, I love to do kirtan and then sit and do meditation, because all of that spiritual energy that's been aroused then gets absorbed deep within, inwardly. So it's very nourishing spiritually to sit and meditate afterwards.
Yeah, it's a goodie. We'll have to do some more kirtan.
So you're talking about midlife crisis, and I think one of the times you sent me was like the mid-80s, and I was thinking about that because that was a time when we were instigating the Mamata, the women's cooperative bakery.
Was that a co-op when it began?
It was a women's cooperative bakery when it started in 85. We had the opening in 85.
Grey Lynn in Auckland.
that was right when, I think that was one of the times you gave me. And I was thinking, yeah, that's interesting, because that was also like a very important time in my life.
So that was your Saturn return. So that's around 29, and it comes change or responsibility, a real shift. I know that the teacher I'm working with a lot at the moment, Mada Dalian, she talks about around that time, that late 20s, is when young adults turn into adults.
Yeah, I can really relate to that, because that was a project that transformed my life, and it was not just about making a bakery and making some new products and making it economically viable project. It was also about collaboration and working together with other women, and experiencing that for the first time, what it was like to work collaboratively and being there for each other, having meetings till 3 a.m. if need be, to work through stuff. So it was a very powerful transformation for me, that period. And a lot of inner turmoil also, like a lot of challenges in that too. Going through our own stuff and being there for others as they go through their own stuff,
Mm-hmm.
One stage we had like 17 women working there and all going through their stuff, all going through their stuff.
Wow.
And amazing. They'd come to work and some would be crying as they're, doing the dishes or going through things. But because of that environment being so supportive and just being like a really sacred space, they were able to go through it. And we would always play kirtan. We'd play kirtan, or that, I don't know if you remember that tape called Kathanini, Affirmations by Kathanini. It was an amazing tape, a cassette in those days. So that would be going around the clock as well. It's affirmations for women, plus kirtan, plus other kind of spiritual music like Prabhat Sangeet, which is devotional songs. And so that music would be filling the atmosphere with love and support, spiritual vibes. So women would come in there, get away from their homes and their families, and be able to process what they were going through. While doing the dishes, while sweeping the floors, while making the bagels, this kind of stuff.
They do good bagels. Last time I had some. I worked in the ashram in Canada in the kitchen quite a lot, and we had lots of cassette tapes that we played as well with mantra and bhajans.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's something about doing that simple work while that's infusing the atmosphere that has this beautiful peace around it. Though if things got really loud and we're trying to get stuff on the table in time, and sometimes we couldn't really hear the mantra so much. But I have very fond memories of Sundays when it was just a few of us girls and we used to sing Amazing Grace and do 3-part harmony just to pass the time while we were making dinner. It was, yeah,
it's the best time. When we're all engaged in doing some service work usually, and then singing kirtan along with it is very nourishing.
Wow, lots of great memories in life for sure. Yeah, it sounds like those kind of pivotal points of the astrological transits. There was quite a bit going on, especially 8 months in India. Oof. Can't imagine how many times you might have got sick from from some kind of bug.
Exactly, especially in those days.
Yeah.
It's hard to get good food and hard to get good water. We had to, take filters with us in those days. You couldn't buy it. You had to take filters. So it's
probably more reliable.
Yeah. Now it's easy. Now it's so much easier now in India.
But more plastic.
That's true.
Yeah. So how can we find the Kirtan Academy, and how do we find your music? And
the Kirtan Academy, we have a website. It's www.kirtanacademy, one word, and the kirtan has 2 I's in it, because that's how it's pronounced in Sanskrit. So it's KIIRTAN Academy, ACADEMY.com. And also I can, if anyone's interested, they can email me at jyoshnalatrobe@gmail.com. That's JYOSNALATROBE @gmail.com, and I can send you any information that you want to know about it.
And where's your music? Is it on some of the online platforms? Or
Yes, it's on all the so it's on Spotify, it's on Bandcamp, it's on Inner Song, which is a company in America that distributes kirtans called innersong.us, but also Spotify and all of the major music media. And my latest project is one called Unity Hours, and these are songs, and these are songs of my spiritual journey, ranging from the time when I was doing my PhD in England, from about 2008 to the present day. So I've just completed Unity Hours 4 in Ireland, which was an amazing place to record that. I recorded it in a studio where most traditional musicians had recorded, and in an area where a lot of traditional music is happening. And so I was really honoured to be able to play with some amazing uilleann pipe players, for example, and other traditional musical instruments like traditional players playing cello and so forth, and banjo and these kind of things. So this album, which isn't out yet, which will be out soon hopefully, is songs written in Ireland during that period when I was really trying to get myself up again. So there's lots of songs. There's some songs which talk about that sort of a breakup that I'd been through, and then songs about letting go and songs about love and all kinds of things. So that's coming out soon, and that will be put up on Spotify and so forth. Yeah.
Great. I suspect that period of time may have been around, Uranus opposition's part of the midlife, but then it goes around, and then the Uranus is square. So instead of being 180 degrees, it's at 90 degrees from where it was at birth, and sounds to me like that might have been that period of time, like a bit of a shake.
Like a big shake around.
Yeah.
Yeah, that must have been it, truly, because that's when I started the Kirtan Canon. There's always two sides of things, isn't there? There's the impetus that comes out of it, but then there's also the period beforehand, which is a bit tough, challenging, and then there's the new inspiration that comes from it. So yeah, it must be something to do with that.
Hence I'm doing this show. I'm in the lead up to my big shake-up. So I'm like, okay, how can I go through this a bit more peacefully? But I think what I've learned so far from interviewing people, especially my astrology teacher and also Human Design New Zealand founder, was really, I just have to go with the flow and do my best.
Yeah, because with deep change, there's both sides of the story, isn't there? There's the pain, and then there's the ecstasy.
Pain and ecstasy.
Yeah.
Thanks so much, Jyoshna. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me.
For music today, of course, it had to be kirtan related. I had a beautiful track in mind, recorded just a couple of weeks ago at Jyoshna's request that the Divine Feminine play and share kirtan by all women to coordinate with a New Zealand Yoga Day festival that only featured male kirtanists. However, it is a kirtan melody I learned elsewhere, and it doesn't align with my intention of releasing original music. So today there are two tracks. The first is a short mantra that a work colleague actually sent me a link to something. She said, wow, this is amazing, it's changed my life, you should listen to it. And when I listened to it, I was like, oh right, yeah, I've known this for years. It's a Shanti mantra that I've chanted abundantly as part of Havan fire ceremonies. And that was especially while living at Rockland Ashram in Australia in 2009. A melody came through while I was kind of seeing what I could come up with inspiration for this month around. So this is the original music for today. The mantra is the Poornamada Poornamidam Shanti mantra. It has a few different translations, and here is a lovely one. You are the fullness. There is fullness. Here is fullness. From the fullness is born. Remove the fullness from the fullness, and the fullness alone remains. That was F-U-L-L, not F-O-O-L, just in case my accent created any kind of confusion. The second is the track that Emma Skellern and I recorded the other week for the project with Jyoshna. We were two of the founding members, Emma and I, of a music group called Shakti Sacred Music, and we were active 2011 through to 2017, and we played often on the kirtan stage that Jyoshna organised, that we spoke about in the interview. It was a time where we didn't have a lot of phones or social media, and we don't have a huge amount of social media presence or very many recordings either. What we're singing here is the Gayatri mantra. It's a very well-known mantra around the world. I first came across it before I found yoga even. It was in a rune book by Ralph Bloom that I came across in 2001, and his translation is actually my favourite. You, who are the source of all power, whose rays illuminate the whole world, illuminate also my heart, so I too may do your work. Little did I know that I would chant this many times in the future. The melody is one I learned while living at Yashodhara Ashram in Canada. I don't know who wrote the melody. Whoever you are, whenever it was written, thank you, you gave us a great gift. Here's Om Poornamada, followed by the Gayatri mantra.
Poornamada Poornamidam Poornat Poornamudachyate Poornasya Poornamadaya Poornameva Vashishyate Poornamada Poornamidam Poornat Poornamudachyate Poornasya Poornamadaya Poornameva Vashishyate Poornamada Poornamidam Poornat Poornamudachyate Poornasya Poornamadaya Poornameva Vashishyate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhurva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Dhyo Yonah Prachodayat. Om Bhurva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Prachodaya Om Bhurva Swaha Tatsaviturvarenyam Bhargo Devasya Dhimahi Joyonaha Prachodaya.
Unraveling Midlife is brought to you from Aotearoa, New Zealand by www.sarahmarlowespence.com. Theme music is by Sarah Marlowe Spence and Sarasvati Marie Willis, and art by Samantha Hepburn.